All right, so Dollet, we can't use the term JRPG anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's
And
banned.
why? Banned.
It's
Oh no.
banned. It's banned. We can't do it.
All right, all right. So why can't we do it?
Our Lord and Savior Yoshi-P finds it offensive.
Shit. Well, I mean, if Yoshi-P finds it offensive, I mean, god damn, I might never use the term again.
I mean, I have contemplated over the past couple of days of, do I police myself from actually saying JRPG and instead of, and like just saying RPG instead. And I still don't know. Um I can live with myself like saying something is like calling Xenoblade an RPG, all right? But I can't say that I won't slip up and say JRPG.
I mean, 100%. This is going to be something that's going to take an incredible amount of time for me, anyway.
Yeah.
I've like from growing up as a kid. If you asked me what my favorite genre of gaming was, I would say, well, fighting game. But after that, I would have said the specifically JRPG. I mean, I like Skyrim. I like Heroes of Might and Magic. Those were good. I mean, I played Skyrim. I meant Elder Scrolls. No, they're all Skyrim, all of them.
Yeah, they're all.
Like I like the Elder Scrolls. I like Fallout. I um, like I said, Heroes of Might and Magic. Like, I like RPGs in general, but I specifically like JRPGs, and I think I like them for the same reason that this term probably was hurtful when it was considered hurtful. But on that topic, you wanna give some context to why we're talking about this?
Yes. So, for everybody that knows, obviously, the Final Fantasy 16 media tour was going on. A bunch of content creators got to go out and play the game, interview the staff, et cetera, all that nice jazz. Which, by the way, I'm still mad because where was our invite? Uh, and two, why is it that we're not getting a demo until 2 weeks before the game comes out? Like,
Oh
come
my
on, man.
god, that's absolutely killing me.
Um, that being said, Ralph, the person that we always call Ralph because his name is Ralph, but Skill Up, the guy that runs the Skill Up YouTube, he got to go and he got to interview the senior staff of the development team, and he started off asking a question because he said he remembered Yoshi-P talking about how action games have progressed a lot uh over like the past like couple decades or whatever. And um and he was applying that to like 16. He was like, maybe we should do something like that for 16 and all that. And it got Ralph to think that, well, maybe Yoshi P thinks that JRPGs haven't progressed the same way that action RPGs have. And so Ralph asked this question, and apparently Yoshi P, while not actually answering the question that Ralph asked, did a sidebar and was like, when we're creating role-playing games, they're not creating JRPGs, the Japanese role-playing games. They're just creating role-playing games. And he goes on to talk about how when they first heard this term kind of crop up around 15 years ago, it felt like there was a lot of negative connotation um on saying JRPG. Like people would look at JRPG and just be like, okay, well, Japan's making these games or whatever. And and for a while there, and while Yoshi says obviously not going to name drop people, but he says he's obviously saying he's not the only one that thinks that um that over the years or whatever, he and other developers have had this stigma to the term JRPG because it always felt like it was kind of discriminatory to them. While he knows now the term is used in a very much more positive connotation, that it when he hears it, it still it. I'm remiss to say triggering, because I don't like the word triggering, but it's apparently triggering. And yeah, so like nobody here has ever like honestly, obviously, I mean we're all Western at the moment, so
Yeah.
and nobody obviously has heard that like saying JRPG seems discriminatory, but I think Yoshi-P's in this and most fortuitous position that he's in now, where he can actually feel like and come out and like say things that has probably been on his mind. And so yeah, that was very interesting to hear. I know you and I talked about this last night. I After hearing this, I understood where Yoshi-P was coming from. All right, um, as myself, like I'm not a minority at all. And so nor do I, when anybody like says anything about me or something like that, I kind of brush it off, but that's me. But I understood that like it makes sense because in the right context, yes, Japanese developers, when they're making art like role playing games, they're making what they view as role playing games, and they obviously don't put the moniker Japanese role playing games on it because they just feel like they're just making a video game, and it's a term that's been coined by Western audience. Not because obviously nobody in Japan says, "Oh, this is a great JRPG." Like, people are just gonna say this is a great RPG. And so I, like Ralph, sat there and was like, I understand. I've never heard this, but I actually slightly understand now, because like I also never would have, like, obviously you and I never really thought of it.
No, not at all. I'm like, why? And honestly, why would we? Because we never thought of it as being
Negative.
discriminatory or even,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, negative at all. It was always just a case of, well, this is just a sensible way to differentiate a Japanese styled of the time RPG versus
Mm-hmm.
the RPGs that were already extant in the West. 15 years ago was only 2005, but if we go back a bit further to maybe when he meant, I have a funny feeling Yoshi-P, like the rest of us, has lost track of time a bit. Because 2005 still feels a bit too recent for what he's not reaching, but what he's getting at. But if you go back to like the original Final Fantasies versus like Baldur's Gate, which is just going to be where I default to an older RPG system, like I think that's when you could use the term as just a sense for the audience to be able to differentiate between the two. And we might now, going forward, switch that to a different sense where it's like turn-based versus action-oriented, or turn-based
Mm-hmm.
versus like a CRPG, a like Fire Emblem, which is it's something I'm going to bring up a bit later. Fire Emblem, which could, I guess, also have been considered a JRPG, never really was. It fell under the title of a strategy role playing game, right?
Yeah.
So, because we already had a title for that, it didn't need to be differentiated
Mm-hmm.
its um from the other games surrounding it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the idea of this being seen negatively, like really, it really kind of blew my mind when I heard it. I mean, like I started off this broadcast, I love RPGs. I love specifically what we know as JRPGs. Love Final Fantasy, really big on Xenoblade. Um, I mean, Kingdom Hearts, I guess, but that
See,
leads
I
into
would
the
never, I would never say that Kingdom Hearts was also
it's
a
a
JRPG because
JRPG,
it's an
yeah.
action RPG.
I mean, I think that was something that I switched to later because I definitely thought it was a JRPG. I definitely looked at Kingdom Hearts 1, specifically 1,
Yeah.
and said, "Oh, well, that's just more Final Fantasy." Like I had just gotten finished with what, 10 at the time.
Yeah, it
So I
was
was like, yeah,
definitely around that time. Yeah.
that's just Final Fantasy X again. Now, when it launched, yeah, it certainly didn't
And
feel
then
like
you
that. It
played
felt
it and like
closer.
this played nothing like Final
It's like,
Fantasy
oh,
X.
this is closer to Devil May Cry. That's weird. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah. So like, there is a case to be made that the difference between a JRPG and an RPG is non-existent, right? Like, it
Mm.
just isn't. This is something that we do in the West to differentiate, like I was getting at the beginning, the difference between the bloody Super Robot Wars and, again, Baldur's Bloody Gate.
I mean, even Super Robot Wars would be just considered a tactical RPG.
Then let's go with Tales versus,
Yeah.
again, yeah. So it was a thing of convenience, or I assume it's a thing of convenience.
Hmm.
However, if there is a sense of hostility in how it's taken by by specifically Japanese developers, I mean, at some point, this was used maliciously.
Hmm.
I can't say that I ever heard that, but I mean, it had to have been to elicit this kind of response, right? Or maybe it's just because it is discriminatory. And this is something that you and I spoke about.
Hmm.
Like, because of the J on it, it's suddenly, this is a Japanese product. It couldn't possibly be anything else.
Hmm.
And is it discriminatory? Well, yeah, yeah, I guess it
Yeah.
is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
It
But
it's
is it
like
malicious?
I mean, in the sense that we use JRPG nowadays, it's not malicious or whatever. We say JRPG as just like um we just use it in the sense of in place of what we should be saying, which is normally turn-based RPG. Um
Yes.
and and it like it goes along with like the with the argument because like we wouldn't sit here and call Elden Ring a JRPG, and the reason why is because it's we don't think of that style of gameplay as
Yeah.
a as what we have said is a JRPG. But the issue is that like there's nothing inherently I guess specifically Japanese about Final Fantasy or whatever. It is just a turn-based RPG. So like
No, in
there's
many
not.
cases, Final Fantasy is exceedingly Western. Well, maybe from a Japanese perspective.
Mhm.
I mean, especially the more popular ones. Like it's
Yeah.
all Western style knights and high fantasy elves, all of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the mythos it pulls from are also not strictly Japanese.
Yeah,
So
no. Yeah. I honestly it's like Final Fantasy is like actually kind of one of the most least Japanese like um style. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say style, but like Japanese influenced like role playing games as in a sense of like story and what is actually in the game itself. Um and so like, what inherently makes Final Fantasy a JRPG and and what inherently makes Elden Ring not a JRPG. It's just how we look at the actual gameplay, but
no, I mean it's
the actual
honestly,
gameplay itself is not something coined by Japanese people. Anybody can make a turn-based role-playing game. So like,
but even then I would beat back on that. I was like, I don't even necessarily think it's gameplay because I still call Xenoblade a JRPG, and I wouldn't call that turn-based, specifically 3 in this instance.
yeah.
Like this is where I think it comes from. We spoke about this. I think it comes from the aesthetic, and a couple of notable tropes.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it comes from like the tropes. Children save the world, straight up. Like that is something you'll find in most of them.
Anime
Um,
looking.
and it looks like an anime.
Yeah.
Like straight up. Like, and I don't just mean bright colors. You can have bright colors and not necessarily look like an anime. I mean like there's a lot of like very anime tropes that go along into this. Like if like even looking at Final Fantasy, which has since 6 really pushed graphically what you can do, still a lot of anime tropes.
Mhm.
But Final Fantasy itself also has shifted from its turn-based roots. Xenoblade has always been like a hybrid system, or it's mostly action anyway.
Yeah, it's the way it is. For Xenoblade specifically, and they do it very, it's like very clever of how they hide it. Xenoblade, it's pretty much ATB system. All right.
Yes.
But you don't ever think of it because the gameplay is still kind of actually just like a high impact, like action like. But under the hood, it's ATB, and I get in arguments with like a couple of our friends or whatever when I say it's kind of an ATB system, and they say no, it's not. And I'm like it. If you have a timer on when you can attack, it's ATB. That's literally what ATB
I
is.
agree. And I agree. But then you have other things like the newest tale, like Arise, is getting
Hmm.
away from that because you can attack without
Well,
having.
no, so Tales games has never been ATB gate.
That's true though. But this
Tales,
was this. But again, this is my whole point for naming all of these games is I
yeah,
don't think it's just turn based.
no,
Because
no, no.
you do have turn based, like Final
Mhm.
Fantasy was turn based for a very long time. The Kiseki series turn
Yeah,
based.
yeah.
And it's Brave Cold Steel's system is mwah, love it to
Hmm.
death.
Wait till you play
Um,
Kuro.
yeah, I know, right? Then you have the hybrid of Kuro. You get into games like the newer Tales games, or really any Tales games, but specifically the new ones, so
Hmm.
people have like a concrete idea of what we're talking about. And then you have 16.
Which is
Though getting up to 16, maybe I'll exclude that because I don't think it has those tropes that I associate with JRPG.
no the I mean the only I mean no, you can't. I can't even say that there's like there's no anime tropes in it, or like there might be like anime tropes in it, like within some of the writing, but I highly doubt it. But there's no tropes as in the look of the game. There's no trope. There's no like there's no typical JRPG tropes as in like it's not turn based. It's not these damn kids saving the world because they're all fucking gold as shit. Um,
Yeah, it's not a high school aged group of people. It's not.
yeah.
It's not going to be like very shonen.
Um,
Like it's taking a very grounded approach, much like what we would expect from Western style games. Though even then, that's kind of weird because games like Skyrim is like, what do you call it? Grounded. I mean, at the end of the day, you can make a wizard.
yeah, but and I wouldn't even say 16 is grounded because it might be grounded in some things, but it's definitely they're very flashy and like super action. I mean, it's Devil May Cry. Let's be real here.
Yeah, and mostly grounded is one of those things where I think the best case is to use it in comparison to itself. Like against other
Hmm.
Final Fantasy games, this feels more grounded. Most of the Ivalice style games, which this feels a whole lot like, are
Hmm.
well more grounded than their ridiculous counterparts, like Ten's giant space whale, magic creatures,
Whoa, 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 whoa.
and
We still don't know yet. I mean, let's be real here. There's giant fucking kaiju battles in this game.
I mean that's fair enough. But like this feels like it's gonna be a political drama.
Yeah,
Is the big
yeah,
point
yeah,
in all
yeah.
this. I feel like the point isn't even really save the world. It's like
Hmm.
not for Clive because Clive is we understand is literally just out for revenge.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
super simple. Just
but
ends up
but
being a bigger thing.
but on the actual topic, it's just like obviously Yoshi-P doesn't want you calling this game a JRPG. I
No,
don't think anybody was going to call it a JRPG
I
because
agree.
nobody calls Devil May Cry a JRPG. Um, because that's kind of what it's not. I mean, hell, Devil May Cry is just a straight up action game. It's not even a role playing game. Um,
Correct.
though this game is a role playing game, so this is going to be. I mean, it's weird because the basis of what Yoshi P was actually getting at here is that he doesn't want the games that he makes or whatever, defined in these narrow boxes. All right. He doesn't want whether there's good or bad connotations, but he doesn't want them being like checked off and like, okay, this is what this game is, this is what this game is, this is what this game is, etc., etc. Um, and we've seen this from Yoshi P. Yoshi P, like when doing what he does with 14 or whatever, he doesn't like 14 being like checked off, and it's an MMO, yes, but they're also trying to cater to people that only want a single player experience as well in that game. So, he doesn't want people to look at like 14 and be like, that's an MMO and don't want to play it. All right. He doesn't want people to look at like Final Fantasy 16. That's a JRPG. Don't want to play it. All right. They just want to make video games, and and I guess like I said, Yoshi-P's in this position now where he can actually kind of like, let's be real here. Japan calls Yoshi-P the fucking golden boy, and I don't even mean Square Enix calls him the golden boy. I mean Japan calls him. He's called the golden boy in like Famitsu and all that stuff. He's literally the guy that like took 14 and raised it back from like literally like the 7th layer of hell. So pretty much saved Square Enix. And he's looking to redefine Final Fantasy with this new game.
Well, if there's someone who gets a shot at recontextualizing how we think about video games in any way, Yoshi-P is one of those names I would put down. And if this is going to be something that he can kind of hard force, then I do believe we'll see a shift away from like JRPG to, all right, we're just going to use RPGs now because they're all they no longer no longer are we just an anime but playable. And I'm sure those games will still exist. But if a dev now wants their game to be seen as an RPG, not a JRPG, I think there is room for that. I think, admittedly, Elden Ring does set up for this. I think, however, the problem with that is the aesthetic is so Western in Elden Ring. People forget that that's a Japanese dev.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people are like, this can't be a JRPG, and I'm like, I mean, on a technical basis, if you want to go down what we actually mean by JRPG, which is literally means an RPG made by Japanese developer, yes, Elden Ring is supposed to fit under that list or whatever. But nobody's going to sit here and call it that. And I think going forward, Yoshi-P probably doesn't want people to say anything that Square Enix does, like whether it's like an RPG or anything else, to be called a JRPG. And I can respect him for that.
Like, yeah, I think it's really noble. I don't think he'll succeed in that regard. Because I think that specifically Square still makes some really anime coded games.
Yeah.
Like, you're never not going to get someone to call a Dragon Quest a standard RPG. That will forever be JRPG. Like, literally, as long as it looks like a Toriyama anime, it's going to be called a JRPG. But if Final Fantasy, which has always done a very good job of trying to push for realism in its characters, maybe not its writing, but at least like how the characters look, I think there's room for that. Between Yoshi-P and Miyazaki, I think these two could usher in an era wherein RPGs in Japan aren't all necessarily going to be called JRPGs. I mean, Miyazaki, like I said, Miyazaki's already done it. He's done.
Yeah, he's done. He's already there. He did that with Dark Souls.
Now, I think with the move away from turn-based, which I think is kind of defining of what people think of for JRPGs, despite it not necessarily being a must, I think this does help. And especially moving towards something so spectacular as DMC-inspired combat. I think a lot of people also forget that DMC and Bayonetta are Japanese games. So I think without necessarily grabbing a bunch of Westerners, he's dipped into a pool that people ascribe to the Western audience because that's what we want to play. When we want to play an action-based thing, we don't like it. I don't want to call Westerners stupid, but we don't necessarily always want to sit there and think about it. I do. Yeah. I think conditional turn-based combat is the best, but that's not necessarily true for everyone.
You're also a massive DMC fan.
I also really like Devil May Cry, so like when I heard they got my guy, I was like, okay, cool, fantastic. And yeah, Clive looks like Nero in some animations. It's frankly amazing. But yeah, I mean, all this is to say that I mean, if there's someone who could do it inside Square to make a difference for at least just Square games, Yoshi is probably the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we get to a place where he will be truly happy, and I think this is going to be a generational thing where so long as the journalists are still calling them JRPGs, nothing
Mm-hmm.
is going to change. But I am at
Um,
least happy to hear that he understands that
we actually don't
currently
mean it in a bad way at the moment.
it's not malicious.
Yeah.
I would be so curious to bend his ear and figure out what about JRPG felt malicious, or who used it like that, so I could just better understand where this angst comes from. This justifiable angst, but angst nonetheless comes from.
Come on, Yoshi-P. Tell us who hurt you. All right.
Yeah, let us
So
rip
we
the fuck
can.
him up.
Yeah. Let us fuck him up and be like, bruh, come on, how could you do this to him? But yeah, I mean, I'm I sit here and like, we obviously use JRPG in the sense that we're like, we look at Persona and we're like, yeah, I mean that's obviously a Japanese style RPG, and by
God,
Japanese style, I mean for one, it's literally set in fucking Japan. Like, oh, okay,
Persona 3, 4, and 5 is like everything anyone has ever thought about JRPG. The
yeah,
good and the bad. It's slow, it's turn-based, you have to grind, there's a social aspect, the music is made of absolute fucking bangers. And
anime
the
as
art,
fuck.
the art style is anime is all get out. They're high school students. They're
Yeah,
dealing with angst. They save the world. Well, their little section of the world. Yeah, no, like Persona 5. If I actually had to put JRPG on a as a like defined type, like that
got a
that is what
poster
you
boy.
look
Yeah, it's
at.
like the poster boy of JRPGs, Persona.
Specifically, 5 is like the most perfect example of it.
Yeah,
Holy crap! I can't believe I forgot about the Persona series.
yeah. Um, yeah. No, I mean, going forward, I don't know. I don't know how much I'll be able to actually police myself from saying like, "Oh, this is a typical JRPG" or something like that. But like, I mean, I I can understand and try for the respect of Yoshi-P. I mean, the guy's not going to say something just because he wants to fucking say it. All right, he's got a reason to say stuff. All right. So I'll hand it to him. And he's, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if after this we actually start seeing more devs like maybe say something about it. Um,
It's entirely possible, right? Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. Um, so while that is important, we have one other thing to talk about when it comes to this media tour. All right. Um, and I also understand this side, a little bit, but I also don't understand another thing. Dollet,
Me?
does 16 have a PR?
Oh God,
Like,
no! They have strung these poor gentlemen out to out to dry. It's yeah.
all right, so,
But Aqua, why do you ask?
all right, because so you remember like 6 to 8 months ago, Yoshi-P was asked a question of like, why isn't there any good representations of like people of color in Final Fantasy 16? And he gave the answer of, well, you didn't really see that many uh persons of color in the medieval Europe, you know. And there was like a huge backlash over that because that's obviously not true. um well, it seems like no one went to a PR team and was like, "Can I get a better answer for this?" Cuz they said it again.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
specifically asked by a writer for The Verge, um, he he said the same thing, and I'm sitting here like, I'll give you the first time. The first time you're probably not even thinking that somebody's going to ask you this question because it probably just went over your fucking head, and you didn't, and you were just like, oh, you know what? You're right. But obviously this is what we were thinking. All right. And then you don't ask for a better answer, and you just rehash the same thing. And
So
I'm
it
sitting
says
here like,
one of two things: either truly there is no PR, or more worrisomely, this is the official stance.
and
I mean, and it is the official stance,
yeah, it
obviously.
is the official stance. Yeah, I understand. Like, okay, so I'm gonna pick my words very carefully here.
Yeah, because we do have to play very safe on this one.
I I understand why they think that. uh, uh, Japan's not very known for their um best views of outside of Japan. And to them, medieval Europe could have actually just been very whitewashed in their eyes. So that I believe. But it's wrong. um and when asked the question the first time, the correct response the correct response after giving the bad answer, all right, is to go to your PR team to, one, figure out a better answer, all right, two, maybe just go into the game and crank the melanin up just a little bit.
We're not gonna dance around it. Like, there's a whole MENA coded area. There's a Middle
Yeah,
East, North
yeah.
African coded location. And yeah, the folks there have color on their skin, but they're just tanned Italian guys.
Yeah.
Which, I
Um
mean, like, look, here's the thing, right? I get it. It wasn't high on their to-do list when they were putting the game together. But it does strike me as strange when there's a fix for this.
Yeah.
Just go in on a couple of characters in there and just up and down. Like,
They don't even have
realistically,
to be main characters.
like, yeah, like, look, we understand that it's done. I don't expect you to suddenly make Clive or Benedicta or any other characters like
Oh, yeah,
straight up.
no. And I
It's
don't think
fine.
anybody's actually expecting that either. All right.
No, and if you are,
Not at this point.
what are you doing?
Not at this, even not at the point when the question was asked the first time. All right. Um the problem is it's just the original answer was bad, and then they doubled down on the original answer. All right. And slight respect for sticking to their fucking guns, I guess.
I mean, yeah, like, again, this is clearly the official stance and is agreed upon by everyone working on the game, or at least
Yeah.
all the people who get to make decisions working on the game. So, yeah, cool. There is something nice about not being like bullied into changing your vision, but also, I mean, throw us a fucking bone here, man. Just make them like me. I am ambiguously brown. They don't have to be African. They don't have to be like American black folk. They don't have to be any particular Middle Eastern nation. Just give us some melanin.
Did 15 have any um non, I guess, Japanese looking characters? Because most of the characters in
Well,
like some characters.
I would go so far as to say 15 was super skewed just towards um just like general European folk or white Americans. The only one who really looked Japanese was Noctis, which is strange because his father was clearly a European guy.
Yeah.
We don't know what his mother is and blah 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 blah, but like clearly Noctis is the holdover because his father used to look like him. They changed them after the fact. But to the question that you asked, I don't remember there being any darker faces in 15.
Yeah.
Full stop. I guess that's it. That's my whole thought. There just weren't, and there certainly wasn't anyone who was important. So
No. And 13 had Saz. 13 had
13 had
13 had a token black guy.
13 had Saz and Dodge. And my favorite piece of trivia about this is the director went on to say, if we do 13 stuff going forward, I'd like Saz to be our mascot character. Like, he's the one we'd want to hold the torch for the... And they've just never done that. It's always been Lightning. Every single time, it's Lightning or it's... I was going to say maybe it was Claire. Not Claire. Her name's Claire. What's her sister's name? Sarah, but that's not actually strictly speaking true.
Mm-hmm.
She was just the lead of the second game, and it was still all about getting to find Lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just Light. Yeah. See, I mean, there are black characters in Fantasy, but they are few
and far between.
Like, you have Barrett, and Barrett is
like
a bit of a he's a bit of a caricature, but we'll let it slide.
Barrett was like the first and last one till 13.
No, because Raijin, unless you mean in the party, in which case, yes. Because Raijin is color. I have no idea what I think Raijin is probably just a dark skinned Asian fellow, given the name.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, for me, I don't care. I don't care about black. I don't care about the specific race, because to their credit, this is fantasy. I am willing to give you that. I don't care what the obvious real life background is. I just want melanin on skin.
Yeah.
I just want to see someone who looks a little bit like me.
You specifically want a very tan lady.
If I could have it my way, I would like a 5'10" to 6 foot tanned lady with visible musculature and long flowing black hair.
Yes. I have seen your creative characters before.
If you could just make Fang with melanin, that would be grand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm all for having I'm obviously I'm all for having representation, all right? I mean,
sure,
should be a given. And I'm all for developers having a reason for there not being any, as long as the reason makes sense.
Yeah, this was just in Japan, and I recognize that before I get jumped on, there are black folk in Japan. But even if this was a just JP game, in fantasy Japan, on an island, broken away from the world, yeah, all right. When there's gonna be no black folks in Ishin, other than I think Alex on a card, that's fine. Whatever. It's a Japanese game in fantasy Japan. About a Japanese, but the moment you move away from something that can be isolated into a worldly space, what doing this suggests is that there is no color in your world. And whilst you might not mean that maliciously, there's a lot of subtext in that thought.
Yeah. The only thing we can ask is, Yoshi-P, get a PR, man.
Oh yeah, man, get someone to speak for you on that particular topic.
Talk to your PR at least.
Yeah,
you should have had a card ready for you for any of the interviewers or whatever. Should have had.
Man, if I got blindsided by that question, you'd never blindside me with it again.
No,
I'd have answers written down.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Write it on a card. Yeah, exactly.
I answered this poorly last time. Let me make sure I get this right.
But yeah, I mean, what? I don't know. It's just baffling because I read the article for it, and I was like, I was like, come on, man.
It was strange because I heard about this well after the event, right? Because obviously, when I first heard about 16 stuff, all I heard was stuff like the game, the various game time the folks got, Ralph's little JRPG misadventure,
Mhm.
and the fact that there would be no demo until half a month before the game comes out. It's like, all right, that's fine, it's all great. And then like this kind of just snuck up on me. I was like, oh, we're doing this again, are we? That's interesting.
Yeah. So moral of the story is, Yoshi-P, you'll never see this video because I highly doubt. Oh, for one, you're super busy. Two, you're just never gonna click on this video. But on the 0.00017% chance that you do, you should maybe carry a card on you that tells you that you shouldn't answer this question that poorly. And I mean, also you do you. So, I mean that's actually all we need to talk about. We wanted to say something like this at the end of the Wild Hearts fucking episode, but you know, when you have Laver on and he talks, he's very passionate.
The passion that man had.
Yeah. But yeah. I'm not even gonna like try to edit this video. I'm just gonna throw it up on YouTube, and you guys can enjoy this like little conversation. If you agree with us or you disagree with us, you can tell us in the comments. If you liked hearing us rambling on about stuff that we let's be real here. We're not fucking professionals in this sphere. You can like and subscribe and all that nice jazz. But yeah, we will see you guys when we're gonna be recording in like another 3 days. So we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys soon. Bye. Before you go, remember to like, comment, and sub to us. Not only does it help out the channel and let us know what you're into, but it also makes you 100% cooler than everybody else. I checked with Aqua. It's definitely